it's a really, really complicated and difficult. So far, we've had a few that have done it. XRP has done it, and that surprised everybody, right? Because
did it surprise you?
It did. And listen, we're a big owner of XRP, the company, but the token, because, I had all the same reasons everyone else. It was less decentralized. It was not a true blockchain. You can all the criticisms at XRP. It missed something important. They built a fierce community of people that believed in their narrative and turned it into money. And for them, it's money. How do you turn something?
You just heard from Mike Novogratz, who spent 11 years at Goldman Sachs, where he was elected a partner, then went on to serve at the New York Federal Reserve's Investment Advisory Committee on Financial Markets for another period of 3 years. This was all before he became founder and CEO of Galaxy Digital, which is a very large shareholder of the Ripple company. We have huge news. The fact that Canary Capital has officially launched the very first true XRP spot ETF, which recorded a record $58.5 million in volume on the NASDAQ. This is under the ticker XRPC. So if you're looking to purchase XRP through this regulated product, you're good to go on most TradFi platforms. Still, this doesn't explain why the price is down on the day. With all of the positive inflows, with an XRP spot ETF, a true spot ETF launched today, the market traded down heavily. You have people like Mike Novogratz talking positively about XRP, that he didn't see it happening. You even have someone like Jake Claver stating that if all of the XRP ETFs launched together, among a few other key major catalysts, that XRP could hit 3 to 4 digits by 2026. And maybe that's true, but I no longer listen to all the noise. I no longer think about all the positive news. I actually focus on the price first. If the price is telling me one thing and the news is telling me another, well, the reality is the price is real, and that maybe things were already priced in. And I'll explain how that works here in just a second. But we didn't see a bunch of ETFs launch on the same day. Canary Capital was ahead of the curve, and this is currently the only true spot ETF available in the United States as of November 13th. But it's possible by 2026 we see a bigger price on XRP, as long as the entire market is in a very healthy place. Bitcoin's doing well. It's possible that Bitwise ETF, 21 shares, Franklin Templeton, Coin shares, which are all currently pending, will launch, and by then we will have more institutional access across the board in order for many of these major players to buy XRP through any one of these ETFs. And ultimately, that was the key. He stated that if XRP ETFs launch in tandem, the token could ascend to the 3 or even 4 digit range, which sounds absolutely ludicrous, even according to my calculations, but I've been wrong before. Now, in his framework, the ETF launches are just one domino among several other cascading forces. He outlines risks of global debt faltering, stablecoin stress, market deleveraging, and institutional exits. And if all of these things were to happen in a perfect storm, then yes, XRP and crypto or digital assets, the largest ones, would be the biggest beneficiaries of this systemic risk and a flight to capital into new assets. Now, Cointelegraph, which tends to put out pretty good information and news, even stated an insight according to some analysts, the fact that XRP's distribution phase equals the end to the bull case. Cycle top targets still $10 to $30, with the potential US spot XRP ETF as a key tailwind. Well, we already have that. We'd likely need to see more ETFs. We'd need to see more inflows, and we need to see a positive environment. And so the reason I don't like what's currently happening, and I'm not trying to FUD the token, it's just the reality. The token's already down on very positive news, arguably some of the best news we've seen. In the past, we've seen good news like Donald Trump announcing adding XRP to a national strategic reserve pumped the price of XRP on March 2nd from about $2.20 all the way up to $3. Then immediately that sold right back off. Then on March 19th, we saw an even smaller pump from $2.28 to a measly $2.58 when the XRP lawsuit was essentially over and Brad Garlinghouse put that statement on X. It was a really big day, yet look at how weak the price action was. Again, that rally sold right back off. And now on November 13th, we have the first XRP spot ETF to create an environment for true institutional adoption in a regulated manner, and the price is actually down. This is the very first time we've had such a large announcement where the price is down, which leads me to believe that not even XRP in all of its strength, with one of the biggest, best communities in all of crypto, can fight the current of the ocean. If the trend is down on the general macro market, all stocks and cryptos are likely going to go down. And I actually think this is because we're seeing a lot of weakness now in the TradFi markets. And so you can see when we look at the prior all-time high coming in on the S&P 500, we had an exhaustion gap up following the QQQ or NASDAQ, which immediately closed the gap, a bit of a retrace and a rally, and now we are putting in a new local high for a series of lower highs in what could potentially be the start to a new downtrend. In other words, the market was actually rallying into the potential for the government to open back up. And the moment the government actually opens back up for a historic 43-day shutdown, the markets start to dump yet again. In other words, this is the perfect example of how you want to buy the rumor, even if it's completely guaranteed, like there's no shot that we wouldn't eventually open the government up. You still want to buy into the rumor of when it's going to open up, and then when it actually occurs, you want to start selling. In similar fashion, XRP dumped to a new low on November 4th. Into a potential government reopening, we rallied. Heck, a lot of people were expecting that ETF as well. As soon as the ETF comes in on November 13th, market dumps, which proves the point that XRP, even with one of the strongest communities in real inflows on an ETF, cannot fight the greater forces of the market. Now that said, it's possible that things could get worse before they get better. Bitcoin just dumped to yet again another $98,000 as investors dump their tech shares because even though we're getting relief on a shutdown, their confidence is waning as we are seeing delayed economic data, which is actually going to threaten certainty into what happens next. In other words, US stocks posted their worst day in a month, and investors are now worried the incoming torrent of data could swing markets and upend bets on the December interest rate cut. People are really looking into that December rate cut and arguably de-risking in case things are worse than we expected because they've not been going by data, they've been going by their gut. What equities are possibly reflecting today is that we're going to see a deluge of data. Again, we just ended the largest and the longest government shutdown in history. Mina Krishman, who is a multi-asset portfolio manager at Schroeder, stated, "We've been in the dark for the past 40 days and it'll be a lot of data all at once, which most managers do not want to carry." So in the case of crypto already looking weak into this environment, actually weaker than the stock market, we only saw Bitcoin dump as well today. And obviously XRP ended up following, although it didn't dump to new lows like Bitcoin down here, arguably up because of the ETF, it still couldn't fight the general trend, which begs the question, will XRP even be able to hit $10 to $30 this year, much less Jay Claver's prediction of 3 or 4 digits? You would need to see all of the macro environment essentially crumble and collapse, and for there to be a flight to capital in digital assets. In other words, it would need to be a full domino effect.